Have you ever found yourself sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, wondering why it's become harder to make new friends as the years go by? You think back to the days when friendships seemed to come naturally, at work, at your kids' school functions, even at the grocery store line. But now, it feels like those spontaneous moments have quietly slipped away. If that sounds even a little familiar, you're not alone. And you're definitely not the only one asking, is it too late to make new friends? The answer is a resounding no. In fact, these golden years might just be the perfect time to build some of the most meaningful, authentic friendships of your life. Yes, it might feel different now than it did when you were 25 or even 45. But different doesn't mean impossible. It means you're starting from a place of experience, wisdom, and genuine self-awareness. And that gives you an incredible advantage. Before we keep going, I'd love your help with something. If you're enjoying this video so far, comment Y below. If not, comment N. It helps me know what's working and what to improve. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Now let's dive deeper. You see, studies have shown that social connections are just as important for health as eating well and exercising. A long-term Harvard study that followed participants for over 75 years found that close relationships, not wealth, not fame, were what kept people happier and healthier throughout their lives. That includes romantic relationships, of course, but also friendships. Those people who make you laugh, who check in on you, who share your stories and remind you that you matter. The problem is, as we age, the social landscape changes. Retirement might mean we no longer see our work friends every day. Children grow up and move away. Loved ones pass on. And if we're not intentional about maintaining and building new relationships, it's easy to feel isolated. But here's the good news. Making new friends after 60 isn't just possible, it's incredibly rewarding. Because at this stage, we're often more selective. We know ourselves better. And that means we can form connections that are built on shared values, mutual respect, and real joy, not convenience or obligation. I know a woman named Carol. She's 72, lives alone, and used to think her days of making friends were behind her. Her daughter gave her a gift certificate to a local pottery class last year. She was hesitant at first, but she went, and she met 2 other women around her age who were also starting something new. Fast forward a few months, and they now have weekly lunches together, go on walks, and support each other like lifelong friends. Carol told me, "I didn't realize how much I missed having someone to just chat with about life." That's the power of stepping into new spaces, especially ones that spark your interests. One of the first keys to making new friends later in life is putting yourself in environments where connection can happen naturally. This doesn't have to mean big, intimidating social events. In fact, small, recurring gatherings are often the best. Think about local book clubs, walking groups, volunteer activities, or even senior center classes that align with your hobbies. And don't underestimate the power of consistent interaction. According to a 2021 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, one of the strongest predictors of friendship development is repeated, low-pressure contact. Just seeing the same faces at the same time every week, like at a fitness class or neighborhood coffee shop, can lay the foundation for trust and openness over time. But I get it. It's not always easy to walk into a room full of strangers, especially when you feel like everyone else already knows each other. That feeling of being the new one can bring up old insecurities. But remember, many of the people in that room feel the exact same way. Sometimes we have to be the first one to smile, the first one to say hello. And that small act of courage, it can open the door to a whole new chapter. Another piece of advice I give often is this: lead with curiosity. Ask people questions about themselves, not in a rapid-fire, interview kind of way, but with genuine interest. People love to feel seen and heard. And when you're curious about others, they'll often become curious about you too. You might be surprised by how many friendships begin with something as simple as, "That's a beautiful scarf. Where did you get it?" Or, "I'm new to this group. Do you come often?" Little moments like these are the stepping stones to bigger connections. And it's okay if it takes time. Not every conversation will lead to a lifelong friendship, and that's perfectly normal. But every attempt is a step forward. You're flexing a social muscle that may have gone a little unused lately, and just like any muscle, it gets stronger with use. What's beautiful about making friends in your golden years is that the friendships often have less pretense. There's a deeper appreciation for presence, for kindness, for honesty. There's less drama, less competition, and more space for simply enjoying each other's company. And if you're someone who feels like you've been hurt or disappointed by friendships in the past, know this: you're allowed to try again. Life has a way of surprising us when we stay open. And you never know who you'll meet tomorrow if you keep showing up today. As we wrap up this first part, let me leave you with this thought. Friendship is not about age, it's about connection. And connection is something we all crave, no matter the stage of life. You're never too old, too shy, or too late to make a new friend. Sometimes, all it takes is one hello to change everything. In the next part, we'll talk more about the emotional roadblocks that can get in the way, like fear of rejection, social anxiety, or grief from past losses, and how to gently work through them. These invisible barriers are more common than you might think, and learning how to overcome them can be the key to opening new doors in your life. So stay with me, because the best is yet to come. Before we begin, I want to make one thing clear. This video is for informational purposes only, and is based on publicly available research. Everyone's health is different, so always consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your lifestyle, diet, or exercise routine. Scientific knowledge is always evolving, and what works for one person may not work for another. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention when we talk about making friends later in life: the emotional baggage we carry. It's not just about finding new people or joining new activities. Sometimes the hardest part is the inner dialogue we don't even realize we're having. I'm too old to start over. No one wants to hear what I have to say. What if I'm rejected, or worse, ignored? Sound familiar? These thoughts can be quiet and subtle, but they pack a punch. They're the kind of mental hurdles that can hold us back before we even step out the door. And here's the thing: these feelings are completely normal. Many of us carry wounds from past friendships, childhood, or even decades-old experiences that made us feel left out or not good enough. But here's the good news: those voices don't get the final say. You do. I once met a man named Roy at a local storytelling event. He was 68, newly retired, and had recently moved to a new city to be closer to his grandchildren. But what he didn't expect was how lonely he'd feel. He said to me, I thought being closer to family would solve everything, but I miss having peers, people to talk with about everyday things. So he made a promise to himself. Every week, he'd try one new thing, even if it scared him. One week it was a cooking class. Another week, he signed up for a community garden. At first, he said it felt awkward, like being the new kid at school again. But slowly, something shifted. People started recognizing him, saying hello, inviting him to stay for coffee after class. Now, 2 years later, Roy has a small group of close friends, and he says it's the happiest he's been in decades. The point is, discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Often, it means you're growing. Science backs this up. Research from the University of Chicago shows that social anxiety doesn't disappear with age, but what can change is how we respond to it. By practicing what's called exposure, or gently putting ourselves into social settings more regularly, our brains begin to rewire that discomfort. What once felt like a high-stakes situation starts to feel manageable, even enjoyable. And let's not forget the impact of grief. Many of us, by the time we reach our 60s or 70s, have experienced real loss of a spouse, a sibling, lifelong friends. That kind of grief can make the thought of forming new bonds feel like a betrayal, or just too emotionally exhausting to even consider. If that's you, I want to gently remind you, healing doesn't mean forgetting. Making new friends doesn't erase the old ones. In fact, those we've loved and lost often become part of the stories we share with new friends. And those memories can help us connect with others on a deeper level. You might be surprised how many people are out there, quietly hoping for someone like you to sit next to them, ask how they're doing, and genuinely care about the answer. Another important part of making friends later in life is learning to be vulnerable. That doesn't mean spilling your life story to the first person you meet. It simply means allowing people to see the real you, the funny parts, the serious parts, the parts you might think are too much or not enough. Vulnerability is what builds trust. It's the glue of connection. In fact, A 2018 study published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that people tend to like each other more when they open up, even just a little. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the right words. You just have to be real. It's also okay to take your time. Friendships in your golden years aren't about speed, they're about depth. One of the most heartening things I've seen over and over again is how one honest conversation can lead to something meaningful. You don't need a dozen new friends. Sometimes one or two good ones can change everything. And yes, it helps to have a plan, just like you would if you were trying to get physically healthier or start a new habit. Think about where people gather in your community. Are there classes at the local senior center? A gardening club? A library book circle? A neighborhood newsletter where people list meetups? One woman I know, Trish, made a game out of trying something new each month. One month, it was Tai Chi in the park. Another month, she joined a Spanish conversation group, even though she barely spoke a word of the language. And wouldn't you know it, that's where she met her now best friend, Maria, who didn't care one bit about Trish's Spanish but loved her sense of humor and brought her into her wider social circle. Sometimes we find friendship in the most unexpected places. And sometimes we have to make peace with the idea that not every interaction will lead somewhere. That's okay too. The act of reaching out, of trying, is valuable all on its own. Because every time you take a step forward, you're saying to yourself, I still matter. My life still has room for new beginnings. You've got something to give, your time, your stories, your compassion, your laughter. And the world needs that. Someone out there is hoping to meet a person just like you. And maybe, just maybe, they're waiting for you to take the first step. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some of the most powerful habits and mindset shifts that can help you attract deeper, more lasting connections. Not just friendly acquaintances, but true friendships that feel like family. We'll also look at how to deal with rejection or awkward moments in a way that actually builds confidence. So stay tuned. You've made it this far, and you're just getting started. So now that we've talked about the emotional hurdles and the courage it takes to put yourself out there, let's go a little deeper. Because making new friends isn't just about what you do. It's also about how you think. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is moving from waiting to be chosen to choosing others. And that starts with a simple question. What kind of friend do I want to be? A lot of us go into new social situations with quiet hopes. Hoping to be liked, hoping someone will talk to us first, hoping we won't feel invisible. That's understandable. But what if, instead, you walked into a room thinking, who can I encourage today? Who might be feeling just like I am? That one small shift, focusing on giving instead of getting, can change everything. I remember talking with a retired teacher named Helen. She told me that for years after her husband passed, she felt almost invisible in social spaces. People didn't know what to say to her, and she didn't know how to reintroduce herself as someone new. Not someone's wife, not someone's teacher, just herself. One day, she decided to start small. Every Sunday, at her local cafe, she would strike up a conversation with someone sitting alone. Not pushy, just a simple, "Hi, I come here every week. The pastries are good, but the coffee's better. You been here before?" Over time, those little chats turned into familiar nods, and eventually full conversations. What she didn't expect was that by reaching out, she was helping others feel seen too. And that, in turn, helped her feel seen again. Helen didn't wait to be invited, she became the inviter. It's important to recognize that we're all craving connection, even if we don't show it. According to a study from AARP, more than 1 in 3 adults over 60 reports feeling lonely regularly. That's not because people don't want friends. It's because so many of us don't know how to start, or we fear rejection. But loneliness isn't a personal failure. It's a signal that we're human and wired for connection. So how do we push past the fear of being turned down or ignored? One powerful way is to reframe rejection. Instead of seeing it as a reflection of your worth, try viewing it as information. Not every connection will be a match, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you are unworthy. It simply means that person wasn't the right fit. Think about how many people you meet in life. You're not supposed to click with everyone, but each attempt teaches you something. Each conversation, even if brief, strengthens your social muscles. Another mindset that helps is embracing what I call friendly persistence. Let's say you go to a book club and you don't hit it off with anyone right away, don't write the whole group off. Try again next week. Sit by someone different. Ask a different question. Often, it takes multiple exposures before people open up, and before we feel truly comfortable. There's a concept in psychology called the mere exposure effect, which basically means we tend to develop a preference for things or people we're exposed to repeatedly. That means just showing up consistently can increase your chances of forming a real bond. So don't underestimate the power of being a regular. Now let's talk about habits. One of the best things you can do to support your social well-being is to schedule connection the same way you would a doctor's appointment or grocery trip. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's a weekly call with a friend, a standing walk around the block with a neighbor, even a daily visit to the local park where you'll start recognizing familiar faces. The key is consistency. You can also get creative about combining friendship building with other areas of your life. Want to be more active? Join a walking group or community dance class. Trying to eat healthier? Host a healthy recipe swap or potluck. Working on a new skill? Sign up for a local class, whether it's watercolor painting, chess, or learning how to use your phone better. Connection often happens when people are gathered around a shared interest. Let me tell you about Charles. He's 74, recently divorced, and he told me he hadn't had a meaningful conversation with someone his age in months. He started by volunteering at a local animal shelter, just 2 hours a week. At first, it was just feeding cats and cleaning kennels. But slowly, he began chatting with the other volunteers. One of them invited him to a community fundraiser. Another introduced him to a weekly trivia night at a nearby diner. Now, Charles has a full calendar, a few close friends, and a new confidence he hadn't felt in years. His secret? He showed up, even when he wasn't sure it would lead anywhere. Here's something I want you to remember. You're not starting from scratch. You have decades of experience, wisdom, humor, and kindness to offer. You've lived through challenges. You've seen the world change. That makes you incredibly interesting, even if you don't always feel that way. You don't need to change who you are to make new friends. You just need to show the world who you already are. Be curious. Ask questions. Share your stories. Listen generously. And when someone opens up to you, honor that moment. It's a step toward trust. And if you ever feel discouraged, remind yourself that friendship, like any relationship, is a journey. It takes time. It takes grace. And sometimes it takes starting again. But the effort is always worth it. Coming up in the final part of this video, we'll wrap everything up with a few powerful takeaways, small steps you can start today, and a final bit of encouragement that I think you'll really want to hear. Especially if you've ever wondered if it's too late to find your people. Stay with me. You're closer than you think. You made it this far, and that alone says something important. You care. You care about connection, about not settling for loneliness, about creating a life that still holds joy, laughter, and those spontaneous, I can't believe we're talking about this, kind of moments that only friendship can bring. Let's take a moment to gently revisit what we've shared together. We started by acknowledging the truth that making new friends later in life isn't always easy. Life shifts, retirement, relocation, loss, or health changes can throw us off balance. The old routines that used to bring people into our lives naturally are gone, and for many, that can feel like the rug's been pulled out from under us. But we also talked about something just as real, the power of intentional connection. That even if friendship doesn't happen by accident anymore, it can still happen, beautifully, powerfully, and in ways that feel deeply fulfilling. You are not too old, too late, or too much. You are just right for the kind of friendship that matters now. We dove into the science behind loneliness and connection, how our brains are wired to bond, how even brief interactions can light up our reward centers, and how friendships help protect our memory, reduce stress, and boost our immune systems. Friendship, it turns out, is one of the healthiest habits we can form, especially in our golden years. Then we moved into the practical, how to take small, low-risk steps to open yourself up. From smiling at a stranger to trying a new class or joining a local group, the magic starts with showing up. That's the first brave step. We talked about the courage it takes to say, "I'd like to know you," even if that means facing the fear of rejection. And we reframed that fear, not as a stop sign, but as a normal part of the process. We also talked about the emotional walls many of us build, walls that once protected us but now keep us isolated. Releasing judgment, letting go of "I'm not good enough" stories, and remembering that everyone else is just as human, just as vulnerable, can be transformative. And finally, we explored the deeper mindset shifts, the ones that turn connection into a habit, becoming the inviter instead of waiting to be invited, practicing friendly persistence by returning again and again to the places where people gather, and perhaps most importantly, embracing the idea that we all have something to offer. Now let's talk about today, right now. What can you do in the next 24 hours to begin shifting your world toward more connection? It could be something as small as calling someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Not texting, not emailing, an actual voice. You might be surprised how much a simple, "Hey, I was thinking of you today," can brighten someone's mood, and yours too. Or maybe it's looking up local events in your area. Libraries often host author talks, crafting circles, or community discussions. Senior centers run exercise classes, lunch socials, and game nights. Even churches or community gardens welcome volunteers and neighbors. One woman I met, Diana, started making new friends by joining a local walking group she found through Facebook. The first time, she nearly turned her car around. But she didn't. And after that first awkward stroll where no one knew her name, she came back again. By the third week, someone saved her a spot in the lineup. Now they walk together 3 mornings a week, and she says it's the best therapy she's ever had. If the idea of big social events overwhelms you, start smaller. Sit in a cafe and make it your routine. Smile at the barista. Say hello to someone else reading alone. Familiarity breeds connection. Remember the mere exposure effect. The more we see someone, the more we like them. Simply being seen regularly in a space makes it easier for people to approach you. And if mobility or health challenges make it hard to get out, don't overlook the power of digital tools. Technology isn't just for the young. There are online groups for nearly every interest imaginable, virtual book clubs, video chat groups for retirees, even pen pal programs for seniors looking to exchange letters or emails with someone across the globe. What matters most is not the how, it's the willingness. The openness to try, to be seen, to say, "I still have room in my life for new people." Because the truth is, we never stop needing others. That's not a weakness. That's what makes us human. Here's a final thought I want to leave with you, something that has always stayed with me. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. It may sound simple, even a little cheesy, but it's powerful when you let it sink in. Every friend you've ever had was once a stranger. And right now, out there in the world, someone is waiting for a friend just like you. They just don't know it yet. So go ahead, make the first move. Say the first word. Ask the first question. Even if your voice shakes a little, even if you're not sure what to say. The act of trying is the act of living fully. You don't need a crowd. You just need a few good people. People who see you, hear you, and enjoy being around you, exactly as you are. And here's the good news. They're out there. We'd really love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions for future topics or questions you want answered, write to us in the comments below. We're here to help, and your input could inspire our next video. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on more practical tips for healthy aging. Here's to living your best life at any age.